I think we're good, man.
Okay, fantastic.
All right. So, David Gwyther, thank you for being on season two Temporary Book Club. This is episode 12. You wrote a book called The Invisible Nurse,
hmm
and you live in England, correct?
I do indeed. Yes, I do.
All right. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, yeah, as I said, my name's David Gwyther. I live in London, in England. I write short stories, mainly science fiction settings, and also narrate audiobooks as well, mainly children's or some history ones as well. And yes, my latest book, The Invisible Nurse, was released a few months ago on Amazon and is a story set in a magical, mystical land. And it's about an invisible nurse, as the title might suggest.
When I was reading your bio, it said you've traveled all around the world. What took you all around the world? What is it? Was it for a job or what was that?
Yeah, I think especially when I was younger, I had a real great sense of adventure. I mean, the world is such a huge, magnificent place, and I'm only from one very small part of it, and I wanted to see the rest of it and what else is out there and how other people live. So I did some volunteer work here and there. I did some traveling, and I worked abroad a bit as well for NGOs here and there. So I've been very
Oh,
fortunate.
nice.
I've been to a lot of different places, and the world is a really magnificent place. And when COVID-19 has hopefully gone for good, I'd like to get back out there and see a bit more of it.
Man, that's my dream. I don't know what bubble I grew up in, but I didn't learn about NGOs and or even the Peace Corps in the United States, which
Oh
allows
yeah,
you to go. And I think I just somehow none of that was common knowledge to me growing up, and now I'm
yeah.
like, man, I wish you get older and you those things that allow you to travel, or just jobs or careers that allow you to get out there, something I'm very envious of because I really haven't traveled a lot. I've been to my uncle lives in Mexico, so I've been there three
Oh,
times, and then around the United States a bit, but outside of the United States, I've been to Ireland three times, but that's it, and it's
where,
sad to
where
say.
would you go if you could go anywhere?
It's funny. I've been reading. This is a weird answer. I've been reading lately about former Yugoslavia.
Okay, okay, yeah, yeah.
I've been reading a lot about that area. There's a really book called Black Falcon. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's about the former Yugoslavia, Croatia, Serbia, and those areas. And man, for some reason, they just draw me there. I mean, you live in the United States. It's very different from where you're from. You have
Mm.
a lot of history that is known. Of course, we have history here, but a lot of it's unknown with the Native Americans. And for those places, man, it just seems like the known history is amazing. Even London. I love London. I would love to go to London. Um, but that would be my number one.
I mean, Croatia. I've been to Croatia
Oh, you have?
myself. It's absolutely beautiful. It's a very tranquil, very relaxed country. The scenery is absolutely stunning. They filmed Game of Thrones in Dubrovnik, which is a beautiful
Oh,
city
right,
in southern.
exactly. With all the red roofs.
Yes,
Yes,
it's
yes.
absolutely gorgeous. It's quite cheap as well. So I mean, if you can get a flight over there, it's quite a cheap place to go.
I'm nervous of. I don't want to be the standard American though that doesn't speak any other language, and that's me essentially. How is
I
it?
No, I mean their English is fantastic. I mean it's the same with England. We're well known for being terrible at other
Are
languages.
you? I didn't know if you were bad as the United
No,
States.
we are well known for it. It's terrible.
Okay, I didn't
There's
realize it.
probably a million Brits that live in Spain that don't speak Spanish.
Oh, okay, so
It's
you're in
hard.
the same boat.
So don't let that put you off at all.
Okay,
Learn some of the local lingo if you can, please and thank you. But don't let that put you off for a
okay,
second.
then I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, go, go.
So let's get to your book.
Yeah.
I thought the coolest thing is, I was trying to classify the book as what to put it under, and then I googled it, and the first thing that came up was folktale, and I'm like, well, no shit, yeah, it's a folktale. How did I miss that? And I love folktales. I mean, is that how you would classify it yourself from writing it?
Yeah, quite possibly, because somewhere along the fantasy kind of fairy tale type genre. I think that's what I had in mind when I was writing it. It's not really about wizards and knights or anything, which is kind of
Right.
what a lot of fantasy is, but it's more of the kind of easygoing local villages, folktale type of stories. The kind of stories that people pass down for generations about where certain things come from. I kind of had that feeling in mind when I
Yeah,
was.
definitely. Once you get to the end, it's like, man, I want to buy this book for every nurse I know. It's because that's exactly the type of first folk tale it is it just kind of gives you a really cool magical history. And you don't see, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't read a lot of science fiction or that kind of thing, but correct me if I'm wrong, you don't see a lot of these type folk tale-ish books, do you? Are they out
Um,
there?
Not that I've read, no, not
No.
really. I'm sure like science fiction is such a broad
Hmm.
range, and there's so many great writers and so many independent writers out there. I'm sure it's been done before in many different ways. They do say there's no original stories, but no, I don't think it's as common as your more traditional type of sci-fi and fantasy. No.
And I think that's what took me a second to classify it because, I love folk music. I love it. It's one of my favorite genres. I love that, it gives you some people a little something to believe in and fight for. And
Mm.
and the folk tale, just same type of thing. It gives you something to kind of lean back on, I think. And even if it's, obviously made up, people need that. People need because even though it's made up, the characteristics that you give the nurses and the things that really should be there, the thank yous and this and that we will get to in your book, the basis of it is all real. Even though the story is not real, the things that are important of the story that come out of it, your lessons that you're trying to teach, are real and are needed.
But that,
Especially
yeah.
today.
I mean, that's my favorite thing about the science fiction and fantasy genre. Oftentimes, you can be dealing with the big issues like globalization or discrimination or religion, but you take them out of this world and you put them into a world that you've created. It's a way of the reader just finding the answers and listening to the story without confusing it with reality. If that makes any sense,
It makes total sense to me because I read books. I don't, like I said, I might need you to give me a list of science fiction books because my mind took me a second to adjust. It really did. It took me a second because I'm so, a lot of books I've been reading lately are nonfiction. And so to switch over and say, wait, stop that. My mind kept saying, well, that can't, that's not that. And I said, that's not what you're reading here. Sit back and relax and just enjoy it. And when I did that, I was like, oh, this is great. But when your mind isn't ready for that at first, it is a change. There's a difference there. You got to be open to it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And again, the message doesn't have to be glaring. The message that you're trying to get across can be very subtle, and the reader can find that out for themselves, and they can enjoy it in a different magical world that you've created.
I think by the time I was finished, I think there were a few messages. Right. I
Mhm.
think there were a couple that I gathered from it, but the main was of obviously, as you know, hey, this is something that we have that's special here. Don't take this career and this job that people do for granted. It's something that is a skill that is learned, and it's easy to take it for granted, which a lot of people do, and don't. Let's appreciate what these people do for us. Um, but you guys have a very different healthcare system
Yes, we
than we
do,
do.
don't we? Yeah.
So, in one question I had, just culturally, and that this may be way off, might be a silly question, but in your book, you give this amazing story and I don't want to give a lot away. I think that people should grab this book, but um, you think that it's important for people to say thank you, which, man, that's one of my biggest things is being appreciative. Um, with your healthcare system, is that an issue or is it just something you wanted to emphasize?
No, so I think clearly it's come around because of COVID-19, and I don't know. Obviously, different countries are dealing with in different ways. But we did a really lovely thing here in the UK. We stopped it now, but it was going for about a month or so. Every Thursday at 8 p.m., everywhere in the country, people would come out and they would clap to say
Yeah, it's
thank you
amazing.
to the NHS. It was such a wonderful thing, and it was a great way of not just saying thank you to the NHS, but realizing that we're part of a much bigger community. Because when you're going outside and clapping, all your neighbours along the street and all down
That's
the
so
other
neat.
streets are out there clapping as well, and that really inspired me because I think I mean, I think that our NHS system is world class, and it gets a
It
lot of
is.
stick. But people complain about everything all the time, even if
Of
they've
course.
got it.
No matter what you do, you're going to get
No
complaints.
matter what. And so I'm not sure before we really appreciated it enough, and we didn't really say thank you enough. And then in this crisis, you know, it was just wonderful people coming out and clapping and saying thank
That's
you,
amazing.
really appreciating the people that are doing such fantastic jobs. And I think that's kind of what the book is built upon. It's built upon, you know, that saying thank you, that recognizing, you know, the strength and the great thing that is there, even though a lot of the times it might be invisible, it might be, you know, we've just taken for granted.
Take it for granted, right?
Sometimes it just needs us to stop and say, look, you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you very much.
Thank you for taking the time to take on this as your career to help people,
Yeah,
right? You know, it's funny. Do people in the UK, are they feel united about the COVID-19? Or is it pretty much? See, I guess the United States is so split right now. I'm wondering if you guys are going through the same thing.
You guys are a much bigger country, isn't it? You know, your population, the size. So we're a lot smaller here, and it's a lot different. I think we have been quite united throughout. You know, I always thought that when we were told to go into lockdown, people would just refuse to do it. Like,
right,
they do it for a couple of weeks and then they get bored. But no, you know, the vast majority of people, they stayed at home, they stayed safe, they protected, you know, our NHS service. And, you know, we're coming out of lockdown now, you know, and that's obviously going to have its, you know, difficulties here and there. But no, I feel that throughout, you know, we have stayed strong.
I was hoping for that. And we had it a little bit, I think, for the first couple months. And then, you know, then we started to have protests with people coming out. One, it's, you know, it's unconstitutional, United States Constitution to lock us up like this. You can't do quarantines. And now it's funny, you know, I'm seeing all over, there was actually something yesterday, a mask burning. People were actually, I mean, it's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Yes. So if you guys have been in lockdown, if you go out in public, do you have to wear a mask right now?
No, you don't. And, you know, me and my partner, we've stayed in lockdown for most of the last few months, so we've not been out much, but recently we have been a bit here and there, and we wear a mask, but most people don't wear a mask.
They don't. Okay.
They don't, which is, it's a shame that they should really. And I think that we don't have anything as extreme as mask burning as you do here in the States. But for me, the thing with it's about individuality. And I
yes,
think
it is.
Individualism is, you know, it's great, and we should respect people's individuals' rights of, you know, freedom and religion and love and all that, of course. But I think sometimes we can see ourselves too much as an individual. And we need to
Americans, it's a cult. It's a cult. It's where too many Americans, they live and die by individualism, and we lose that sense.
Yeah.
Gosh, for your healthcare system, it'd be a miracle. It would be amazing for the United States to get there. So many hurdles because of that thought that you just said. We are so about individualistic. Let me pay for mine. You pay for yours. Even the guy, and the funniest thing, David, the guy that's saying, let me pay for mine, in 80% of the cases can't pay for his own anyways. But he still wants to say, hey, I'll take care of myself. You get yours. Yeah. So it's detrimental.
It's a myth, though, because, you know, we don't live on our own in a forest, you know, hunting rabbits and whatnot. We live in a society sometimes of 10, 100 million people. And
we're
sometimes
social creatures.
Yeah, we have to work together as a team. And, you know, and we do, and that's how we achieve so much, is we do work together as a team. But sometimes at some levels, you know, this idea that we're sold that, you know, we're all individuals, you know, it's fine, but we just need to also have the idea that I'm an individual, but I'm part of a wider community.
And there has to be balance. Yeah, we need balance. We definitely need balance. So, what made you? Was it the COVID-19? Is that what got you writing this book, or has it been there before that?
Well, I've always written stories in my head for at least a decade or so. I've always created worlds and situations and stuff like that. And I think in lockdown, you suddenly had that freedom and that space to be able to get those thoughts out on the paper. And as soon as they started coming out, it was just a wash and away.
That was quick, because when did you guys go in lockdown?
March, I think it was.
So, man, me too. And I started this whole temporary book club thing. But man, you were on it. I mean, yours was how fast did you write this book?
Ooh.
Because you must have I mean, we must have come together around the same time. It had to be probably early April. I mean, you must have had this thing together pretty fast.
I think the initial story probably came out in a week or two, and then after that, there's a long editing process where you're trying to make sure it makes sense and it all works together. But yeah, probably in just a couple of weeks or something. So it was quite a quick. I mean, it's quite a short story. It's only 60 odd pages.
Right.
So, but yeah, probably just a few weeks for this one.
That's amazing, man. I envy you. It's such an art, you know. I've put pen to paper so many times, and it's something that you just have to have a talent for. And I congratulate you, man, for your talent. It's really awesome that you're able to do that. I'd kill for it. Either that or sing. Give me one of the two, and I got neither. I got neither. So I see you have another book. You have a book called, let's see, 15 Minutes to Die. And do you have any other ones, or is that just it?
Yeah, so 15 Minutes to Die was my first one, which is also a short story. And that's about an old man who's dying, and he's looking back on his life, and he's trying to think, you know, did I live it to the max? And I think that's come from definitely me as a young man. In you know, when I went off on all these travels and all these adventures, I always had in the back of my head that, you know, one day I'm going to be an old man, and I'm not going to be able to do any of this. You know, this is
right.
I could do it. So in that story, it's the same sort of thing. It's an old man saying, I've done all my adventures now. I've got nothing left to do. And you know, did I do it to the max? And the idea behind that is, you know, we only live once, so we've got to live it now. Right. And then my latest book, which was out last month, is called The Robot's Decision. In brief, that's a science fiction book. In brief, there's a malfunction on a spaceship, and you know, there's 3 people in danger, and the robot has to sacrifice one of them to save the other 2. And the narrative behind that is, you know, how do we put a value on human life? And it's a wonderful concept to think that, you know, all life is equal, and it is to a great extent. But one, you've got to make that decision. How do you go up to the value to make that sacrifice? You know,
it's funny you said like that. There's that one with there's that. I guess it's I don't know if it's a controversy, but that decision making that comes into if automated cars come about.
Indeed,
where have you know what I'm getting to?
That's in the book, actually.
Is it really? Yes. And there's a new show on Amazon too with that decision. I think the show's called Upload. Have you heard about that?
I've not heard of that, no.
So essentially, you set your new automated car to either, you know, is it going to save the driver or the civilian out on the road? And which setting are you going to put it to? You know, because you're right. Yeah, that's a decision.
But this is the concern with AI, and you know, whether AI is a good or bad thing. At some point, we're going to have to install AI with a set of moral values,
right?
So that the AI can make decisions like that. If it's in a car,
driver-based, civilian-based,
whatever. So who is programming that AI?
Right.
And does that mean, as mankind, we have to come together and agree on a set of moral standards? You know, these are big questions that, you know.
Very big. And do I have any hope that we'd agree on a standard?
Well.
Wait, come to the United States for a couple of days right now. This place is torn up. It's a mess.
I mean, things are coming together, though. I mean,
I'm really scared. You know, I read a book. I did a show last Sunday on a book by a guy that I really respect called Chris Hedges, really well-known journalist in the United States. And he wrote a book called America, the Farewell Tour. And he gives a lot of good points that just says, you know, we were bound to come to this situation. So many different, like you said earlier, you know, I don't think of the United States as big, but it is kind of big. We have a lot of different regions and a lot of different, you know, socioeconomic areas. It's just, I don't know. I don't know what the outcome's going to be. We are very different. And it's between father and son and brothers and sisters. It is a split every which way right now. And do I see something bringing us together? You know, somebody on Facebook, are you on Facebook, David? Yeah, a friend of mine on Facebook wrote recently, and actually this author brought it up in his book. The only thing to bring America together right now would be some kind of terrorist strike, or a war. And it's and that's sad again. I mean, as long as we have a common person to hate, we can come together, but there's always this hate involved.
Why doesn't that work the other way around? Why, if you don't have a common love, does that not bring people together? And correct me if I'm wrong, the impression that I get, and obviously in England we watch all the American television, and America's always on the
Do you really?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, really? What?
So the impression that I get is America is a very patriotic country. So surely patriotism means, love of country, you want countries to succeed. So surely COVID-19 is a huge crisis for the country. Would that not unite people together to say, look, now we need to do what's best for the country?
Well, have you seen our president speak about it, though? Yeah. So you have all these people that our president is acting like it, he actually took control of our CDC, our Center of Diseases, and gives so that brings in all the data of all of the disease in their country. And he says before they can release any information, it actually has to go through him now. So he can make it political and bring it through him. So it's and then he was very anti-mask. He's worn one a couple times, but he did not agree with it because he doesn't like what it is. And then the big thing is schools opening up soon. Is he says everybody should go back to school no matter what. Even though the science is saying this is scary. This is not something that probably looks very good on paper. With the disease we have right now, maybe a little bit of remote, maybe we can do a couple days, but the president is saying, no, we need everybody to go back to school. Why? Because the economy, so the parents can go back to work. And so he's really pushing this agenda, and a lot of people love and trust him, but he's pushing it where science isn't there. So I think you're right. I think 20 years ago, I think we'd be exactly as you say. Because you'd follow science and everybody be on the same page, or any other president would have been on the same page and said, hey, we got to follow these guidelines. Let's fight this thing. But it's not. It's political right now because of Donald Trump rests on the economy. And so
I'm not defending him in the slightest.
No, go ahead.
We have a similar thing in the UK, though. We're at a different stage, I think, of the outbreak here. We've had our peak, and we're leveling off now. So we've opened schools and we're opening businesses, and it is a tough balance because you want to protect people, but at the same time, to pay for those hospitals and those government institutions and all of that, you do need the economy.
You do need the economy.
I'm
with you.
To be able to work. It is a tough balance, isn't it?
It definitely is. We went through. We had a peak, not much of a peak. We had a peak. And then we quarantined. And then it's kind of leveled out. But now there's states.
You guys back up, are you?
Oh
no.
It's the worst. It's a lot of our states, southern states. It's really, really bad. And that's the problem where we should be saying, hey, let's take precautions. A lot of people are like, hey, this is part of just dealing. We have to just deal with it. And part of the dealing with it is people are going to die. And so, man, I think you could have 15 people talking about it, and they're all going to have a different viewpoint. So yeah, no, as far as United goes, no way, not even close, which is, it's sad. How, not to ask how old you are, but you're probably around the same age. Maybe you're about 10 years, probably younger than me, but we grew up at a different time. And to see this happening to my country, who you're, like you said, am I patriot? I'm not nationalistic. I'm not like, yeah, we do a lot of bad things, but do I want my country to succeed? Do I just want everybody to be okay? Yes, I do. I'm very scared. I think a lot of Americans are, no matter where you are, they're scared right now because of what they're seeing. It's not a good situation, but
I hope it improves. I really do for everyone.
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to. So what are we going to see from you next? Are you working on stuff? Are you?
Yeah. Now the floodgates are open. There's so many ideas are coming out, but other writers probably have the same thing. Writing is only 10% inspiration and 90% persevering.
Perspiration, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I was going to say perspiration, but that's like sweaty, isn't it? So the stories are there. It's getting them out. But my next one, I'm working on an anthology with other independent writers as well. So it's a collection of short stories
Short
from other
stories.
writers that I know, and that's going to be out hopefully in the end of September. And
Nice.
my story in there is called the Last President of Earth. And very briefly, it's about aliens have come down and they've conquered the planet, and they've made everything fantastic, and everyone is really healthy and happy, and we live longer and everything like that. But we've given up our freedoms to achieve that. And so the story is talking about the balance. What's more important? Health and happiness or freedom. And
man, that is spot on right now. That is the battle going on. Right, that is the raging battle. That's awesome. I'll have to be on the lookout for that. What authors do you read? Who do you read? Right? Who's do you read a lot?
Yeah. Quite a wide range of stuff, really. A lot of not so much fiction these days, to be honest.
A lot of me too.
I like reading all the science stuff, all the universe creation, the quantum theory stuff. That stuff is mind-boggling. I mean, that's almost more exciting than science fiction. Science fact. But the big one has got to be Isaac Asimov, without a doubt. He's a legend of science fiction. The work that he did is absolutely fantastic. And if you're looking for a science fiction book to read, I suggest the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov.
I'll check it out.
Number one.
Okay.
And then more recently, probably Stephen Baxter. I quite enjoy some of his work as well. He's does some really good stuff. And again, for me, the science fiction stuff, I like the science to be realistic and well thought out, but I also like the ideas to make you think and get involved with and help create that world in your head and a sense of adventure.
Did you read The Martian?
No, sadly I've seen the film, but I've not read the.
So that's what I heard about. That's what people said. They loved it so much. People that I talked to, was just because the science behind it was so true. That it was really fact based, and that they could do a lot of that stuff if that situation would to arose. What nonfiction have you been reading?
Oh, I can't reach my bookshelf from here, but the one I'm reading at the moment is that quantum theory, and I'm not going to pretend that I fully understand it because some of the ideas in this book are just far out.
Right.
But some of them they're talking about. We've known for a long time this idea of multiple universes.
And you mentioned that in The Invisible Nurse. That's how you started out, right?
Exactly. But this is talking about how they expand and contract together and how they cause each other's big bangs and all of that.
That's amazing.
Fantastic. But the one quantum thing that I can't grasp quite yet is this idea that an atom can be in two places at the same time.
Yes.
So the atom, which is obviously the smallest building block of a cup or a pencil or anything, it can exist in two places at the same time.
Mind blowing.
It only exists in a certain place when it's being observed. So it's like the tree is only there because I'm looking at it.
Whose theory is that? Schrödinger or Schrödinger or whatever?
Yeah.
Right. It's because you're observing it, you're seeing it one, but it doesn't mean it's not at the other.
Exactly. And
blows my mind.
The universe is such a huge, big place, and there's so much out there that we don't know. And our brains are so small and compact that trying to understand these great big things from our point of view is very hard. But
that's how I am. You're probably like me. I love reading it. Like they'll tell me stuff like that, and I'm like, man, that's amazing. But could I explain why that happens, or like I just like the shock value almost. Like they'll tell me this happens, and I'm like, that's amazing. I can't tell you why. I don't know. They'll try to explain the science behind it, and then that's all lost on me. But like Stephen Hawking's Black Holes and Baby Universes, I love that book. I could not explain much of it at all. Have you ever read any Bill Bryson?
Yes, his short history of everything.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of when you were talking about the quantum physics. I was thinking of his example of the protons, and he talks about them in a barn, and how this would be in a barn, and how they're right here. They're all over the place. But he does an amazing job of explaining that stuff. And I'm reading his book called The Body right now. Have you heard of The Body?
No.
Yeah, he's got a new book out. It's called same way as Short History of Nearly Everything. You got to check it out. It's really great.
Yeah, I'll look into that. That sounds great.
All right. Well, hey, I want to thank you so much. This has been a really fun conversation. It was great to meet you.
So much for having me.
And I'm going to check out your next stuff. Maybe we can keep in touch on Facebook, and maybe we can do this again sometime.
I'd love that. That'd be great.
Even if, David, even if it's not on one of your books, maybe we could talk about a book that we both read too.
Oh, yeah, I enjoy that. Yeah, enjoy that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
All right. Thanks so much for having me.
Take care. Bye-bye.